This is Tyler, this is Bonnie, and I've asked them if they would share their story, and when they get done, then we are going to celebrate with some baptisms.
Hello. I'm Bonnie. I had to write it down because I get really nervous. I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and my parents are very devout Mormons. There was no drinking, no coffee, no drinking caffeine, no cursing, yada, yada, yada. You know the rules. To help you understand my story, I have to start with my older brother, Russ. He's watching. Hi, Russ. We'll just call him a free spirit, as my mom would probably put it. He attended a youth camp with some of his friends when he was 16 and found Jesus in the woods at a Christian camp. He made a brave choice to step away from the Mormon church at that point, and it felt like death in the family at that time. It caused so much contention and anger with my parents and siblings, but through it all, I felt so close to him still. I looked up to him and I respected him for his choice. Fast forward to when I was 18, graduated from high school, starting to wonder if I belonged anywhere. I struggled with severe depression all through high school, and I knew that there just had to be something more for me than this religion that seemed to be crushing me. Russ invited me to attend a Saturday night service here at Cornwall. And my most favorite thing was worship. I fell in love with Christian music and Bob's sermon, of course. Yeah. He was here.
What year was that?
That was 2005.
2005.
Yeah.
And did Russ work at Goldie's in those days?
Yep.
Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. And when I went back home, back to my parents, they were less than pleased. It felt like a betrayal to them. So I ignored everything that I felt and went about my life, and I did what was expected of me. The next year, I met Tyler. I fell in love hard and fast. For the first time in my life, I felt God, and he said, "You better marry this catch before he goes back to college." And so I did. We quickly had kids, as Mormons do. And as the years went by, my depression just got worse and worse. Cue to March 2020, when COVID hit, the world shut down. And I felt like this was it. This was my time to really deep dive into myself and my faith. So I started researching and listening to podcasts and reading books. And that led to my greatest moment yet, which was leaving everything that I had known. My church, my community, my friends, my whole identity that it seemed. But I had to leave for my kids. I had to break out and find a better life. So we moved out of the Mormon bubble of Utah and back to Washington. For a couple of years, I think I was agnostic. I knew there was a higher power. I had seen miracles happen in my life, so it was hard to deny God. I just didn't really have a relationship with him. Until I met a fellow mom at my kids' field trip. One of the worst field trips of all time, I might add. We bonded, and she created a small space for me to open up about my struggles. And she invited us to come to church with them. And as you would know, it was Cornwall. So I came back. We did, and I've never looked back. We attended church every Sunday, and I even signed up for a class on Mondays called Rough Cut Theology, which Pastor Kip, oh, poor Kip, he didn't know what he was in for. We had all the questions for him. When you're growing up Mormon, questions are not really encouraged. You kind of just stick to what you're taught and you just go along. But we had question after question after question, and Kip just gave us all the answers we needed. He had so much patience and so much love, and he spent so much time praying with us, and it changed our lives. My Jesus moment, as you would call it, happened in September of 2022. was driving by myself from Idaho to Utah, listening to Lauren Daigle, some worship, and I just felt this overwhelming peace, a love that I have never felt before. I started crying. I bawled. I bawled so hard that I had to pull over, and I called Tyler, and I was like, I don't know what the heck is happening to me. And I said, is this God? I don't know. And Jesus was actually reaching out to little insignificant me. But that was just it. In that moment, I didn't feel insignificant. I felt important. I felt valued, special, and loved. Things that I had been longing for my whole entire life. I was wholly loved just as I am. March of 2023, I was baptized here at Cornwall. My brother Russ was the only family member to watch all the way from Colorado. Summer of 2023 is when I felt the push from God. To do more. So I applied for a position to become a part of Cornwall staff. I interviewed and found a new place to belong, and I'm all in. I do what God tells me now, and I give all glory to Him. He has made me into what I am today. He loves me for me, no stipulations, no rules, and I can drink coffee. Two of our children were baptized this last March, so He is working in our family. We made it a point to never push our kids to have a relationship with God. We wanted it to come organically and naturally, and that's what Cornwall allowed to happen. They both found Jesus at camp. So if you don't get anything out of this, get this one thing, as Kip would say, send your kids to camp. They will find Jesus. Those are their stories to tell, so I'm not going to go into that detail. I have one that's left, and he is learning so much in Explorers League, and I know his time is coming soon to fully accept God. So to sum it up, in a matter of 4 years, I left the Mormon church. I moved back to Washington. I found a new best friend. I found Jesus, and I committed my life to Him. I joined the Cornwall staff, and now doing the scariest thing, talking in front of you. Our lives have dramatically changed for the better, and I'm so ready to keep learning and growing in my relationship with God.
Well, what an amazing story for Mom. I love hearing it. So I guess my part of the story that will fill in some blanks and what my perspective was during this time is kind of best described by Jesus continuing. Sorry, you probably see the thing shaking because I get really nervous. Continuing to chase me down, even when I didn't want him to. Like Bonnie.
Tyler, don't you have a video of that?
Yeah, play it, roll it.
You have that video? This is Tyler and Jesus.
Yeah, so like Bonnie, I grew up in like an insanely Mormon household. And honestly, I loved it. It really defined who I was. Everything about it was all in on the Mormon church. Did the mission, the whole thing. Converted people to the Mormon church in Florida. But as I kind of accumulated more life experiences, and just more experiences with God, what the Mormon church taught me growing up and what I was experiencing kind of diverged. This really came to a head when my brother shared with me that he was gay. because that's a really big thing in the Mormon religion. So as a process that it was really seeing him become way more happy than he had been. Just being honest with himself about who God created him to be. And at that same time, the prophets of the church were ostracizing the LGBTQ community. And so that was hard for me. Just looking at my experiences with God and learning, just reading the scriptures on who Jesus Christ was, and knowing that his sole purpose was to reach and uplift the downtrodden and outcast groups of a society. And that just wasn't what they were doing. And so I kind of struggled with that for a long time as I ran into more things that kind of had that dichotomy of what the church was teaching and what God was teaching me. Eventually it led me to say, okay, I know what God's telling me. And so I walked away from the church. Like I said, lost our community, lost our friends. My family was more supportive, so that was nice. But yeah, it was really difficult, just the loss of identity. And so my attitude was like, okay, let's just wipe the whole table clean and start from scratch. What do I really believe? At that point, I only experienced one God, not three as the Mormon church teaches. And so I'm like, okay, I know there's a higher power. Let's call him God. Jesus, I don't know. Like if you want me, Jesus, come and get me. And so I just kind of stopped believing in Jesus at that point. And so like Bonnie said, we moved up to Washington after that. And we're kind of we were working with a real estate agent, figuring out where we're gonna move. And they're like, hey, there's this house over in Linden. And I'm like, nah, bro, I'll pass. Like, I'm not moving to Linden. But we went and looked at the house anyways, and I never get emotional about like things, but this house it was a spot that God found us and directed us to. So we walked in the house, and there was just this intense pull that I just knew that's where God wanted us. And then later, like a year later, we would meet the Twaits. And, the rest is kind of history. We started going to Cornwall. And I was pretty resistant to it at first. Because I just didn't want to get back into religion, right? And as I went, like the first thing that God really started to change my heart with was worship. And sorry, Bob, but Rod gives the best sermons every Sunday. You always play second fiddle. I'm just joking. But I do love his mini sermons.
We're all family here, you can relax.
So, yeah. And then when we started going to Rough Cut Theology, I was like Bonnie said, I was peppering Kip with questions. And eventually, God worked in my heart enough to break me down and caused me to pray for the first time in like 3 or 4 years. And it was a simple prayer. It was just like, hey God, like, if you're Jesus, the next week was a lesson on the Trinity. Like, I want to know that. So I went to bed, got up in the morning, Bonnie was out of town, having her own experience with Jesus. I started doing the dishes, little things, and it just hit me really hard. It was an otherworldly experience, the way I felt. Everything that was broken in my heart, it felt like Jesus was fixing in that moment. And yeah, I mean, I was just still really resistant. So I was like, okay, well, let's just say another prayer. I was like, if this is like really you answering me, like, give me another answer. And so I just turned on our Alexa device, played some music, and like 8 songs in a row talked nothing about Jesus. And for someone who like pretty much exclusively listens to punk music, that's kind of impossible to happen. And so at that point I was just kind of all in. I'm like, okay, yeah, Jesus and God are one. Like the Trinity is the nature of God. And so it was just a really cool experience. And then since then I've just kind of been volunteering at Encounter. Got hooked up with a quad. Shout out to my quad bros out there. And they've been great at just walking me through my development and my relationship with Jesus, and helping overcome some things that I needed to work through. So yeah, that's my story.
It's awesome.
In our story, it is so hard to deny the power of God. We had our Jesus moments at the same exact time, 900 miles away. There is no way that I can deny God now.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing. We just love that. That's awesome, guys.